And now we are connected. Perfect. So, welcome everyone. It's my great pleasure today to restart after our winter break the international webinars of No Bump No Care. No Bump No Care is a network of scholars, philosophical counselors, lawyers, trainers who are there to try to help this very difficult transition into motherhood, parenthood. And we are meeting more or less every month with fantastic speakers to go deep, to dive into certain topics. Today, I'm very happy to welcome the presentation of Sarah Blackstone-Fredericks. She's going to present on inviting cultural humility and story into the delivery room. She studies at California State Polytechnic University Humboldt in cross-disciplinary anthropology. So, Sarah, the floor is all yours. Thanks for presenting today.
Thank you so much, Sissy. I'm so grateful to be here and have an opportunity to share the experience that I'd say many minority women experience in America delivering children, and my experience as a Black woman, which I'm finding is not uncommon. And I'd like to start off with an analogy. So there's statistics that roll around and people see and people understand that more Black women die at hospital in the United States than anywhere else. And it's like, okay, if there are 100,000 people, out of those 100,000 people that are delivering children, if they were white, 14% would pass away. If they were Black, no, not 14%, 14.9 people, my apologies. But if they were Black, it would be 50 people. So it's like, how do we frame that number? It doesn't seem that big, but if you like music and if you go to stadiums and you think about a stadium concert and there's a section to your left, if we were representing the white woman that died during labor and delivery in the United States, that would just be like a row missing. You wouldn't see like a row of people. Okay, unusual. Maybe they got tied up at dinner or something. But if you look to the left and it is Black women, that whole section is empty. So there's a big challenge that is we are not listened to, we are not heard, and I think it goes back so far to colonial times and the fact that we're like half a person and we're seen as less than compared to animals. It still permeates hospitals. So I'm going to read my delivery experience that I had at Kaiser Oakland in 2008, and I was a young mother, and it still lingers today. I'm going to share there's some trigger warning of profanity, stereotyping, and harm. And this was for my narrative medicine course. Forever different. My story of dismissal as a young Black mother in a Bay Area hospital. The story that remains pressing on my mind and in my heart is the one of my only child's delivery back in 2008. The experience that I hold reveals the holes in where Black women slip through the cracks of respect, dignity, and receive harm in return within the American hospital system. I feel heaviness in my heart as my tears start to swell, remembering the ways in which my respect was violated at 19 years old at Kaiser Permanente in Oakland, California. My only decision I had control over was whether or not I wanted visitors, but everything quickly spiraled out of my control. It was the first rain of the season, and my daughter was coming early. I remember feeling terrified because we could not find G anywhere. Everyone was calling him, and he was not answering. It was just me and my mom together, and I felt panicked. The week prior, I checked in with my delivery doc. I recall feeling so freaked out that a baby had to come out of my vagina. It felt like too much. It felt too small. I wondered if there was another way or if I could just cancel the order or something. Yet here I was in way too deep and was nearing the 40-week milestone. Time had run out. Mothers of all ages have that oh shit moment when you realize that the baby has to come out of you and it's going to hurt a lot. So fast forward to the first week of November, and Obama is up for president, and so much is happening in the world. My mother and I walk all morning as we are running out of time, and my soon-to-be arriving baby will require a stroller. I recall slowing down and my mom, the strong Black woman that she is and has been, encouraging me to keep on walking. I had no clue that she was supporting me and I was walking off mild active contractions. They felt milder due to the barometric pressure change. So there we were in downtown Alameda at secondhand shops, walking around and trying to find a stroller with my budget and hers combined. My mom, as difficult as she was at times, was there for this moody, broody teenager of hers, whom she poured endless amounts of cash in for private art schools, and instead of becoming a world-famous artist, was due to have her first baby and become a young Black teen mom. What an embarrassment. Every few moments or so, I would stop to take a breather and then continue walking. It was a day that challenged my body's capacity. Tears continue to well up as I write this. I was so excited to be a mother. I grew up in Berkeley with homeopathy and an herbalist in Chinatown who wrote prescriptions in messy old-style Chinese, and we went to temple. My dad owned an art gallery in Jack London Village, then Square, and practiced Shinto Buddhism, and my mom converted to Hinduism because at age 4 years old, I pointed to a temple and said I wanted to go there. I feel blessed she studied religion at university and indulged my desire. My spiritual need was met with Hinduism. With this, all I wanted was a home birth, but I was poor, on welfare, saving up a storm for our baby to come, and dealing with a very unreliable, unpredictable, disappearing act of a partner who was becoming more and more erratic by the day. My mom said I found the only Mexican that did not like to work. Quite the insult for my ego at the time. I worked so hard, and yet in a sterile hospital room weeks prior, I had decided on my birth plan, and the only power I held, as I could not afford a doula, a home birth, or a water birth, was to have a natural birth. So in front of me was this huge page for a birth plan, and the only line I had was I wanted a natural birth. Or better yet, knowing me, I wrote something brief such as no meds or natural birth. We continued on our so very important errands so that I could get my eyebrows done, and I recall having a contraction on the table while they were waxing me in the back, and how hard it was to be still. We headed on to my mom's and she drew me a bath. The bath was wonderful, but the pain was growing substantially. It climaxed to the point that I could no longer get out of the bath, and somehow my mom managed to get me out of the bath and onto the floor. But from there is where the real adventure begins. I recall not being able to get off of the floor, being stuck on the floor and in too much pain to get up. I was crying or screaming, I do not recall well, but shortly after my neighbors started arriving at my mom's door, and she was sort of talking them down as I was just in her bathroom floor, naked and a bit of a mess. In Black culture, it is very important to be together, to give no one reason to think you are less than or that the stereotypes are true, to give no one a reason to snuff around. But I grew up in a very tight-knit apartment complex community in North Berkeley, directly across from Ohlone Park. My mom invited another mom whose eldest daughter is the same age as me to come and assist. I think they got a robe on me as opposed to a towel, and then I was somehow still stuck. Or was it we tried to walk and I was unable to at all? It was too much or too painful, so an ambulance was called. I did not worry as I knew my Medi-Cal would cover it. When the guys arrived, they had to make it up to the second floor of this apartment complex. The air smelled fresh and brisk as it was early afternoon, and they loaded me on a stretcher, and it was a whole hullabaloo. All the neighbors were concerned about me, so they came out to ask me and my mom questions. My mom gently warded them off so I could be loaded into the ambulance, as she knew what was to come. The medics loaded me into the ambulance. My mom hopped in. Pretty sure I asked her to try G one more time, and he did not answer. I was feeling quite a bit of despair that he was unreachable. In the ambulance, all I asked the medic for was an epidural. Screw the natural birth plan. This hurt like hell, and if this was just the start, I did not need to know how the finale felt. The kind man held my hand as I nearly squeezed it off, particularly in fear of what was to come, and particularly because I was in a whole lot of pain. He was kind and told me they cannot administer epidurals. What he could do was prep me so that when I arrived at the hospital, I could be ready for it. I'm pretty sure he just set me up for an IV, but it pacified my incessant asking. We arrived at the hospital and I checked in. When you're having a baby at the hospital, there is a simple form you fill out and they ask about visitors. I recall writing in all caps, absolutely no visitors. Having a baby was a sacred moment, and I wanted to cherish it fully. They rushed me in and checked my dilation. I was pretty much close to fully dilated around 4:30 p.m. when I arrived. They had to slow me down as my heart rate was stressing my baby. They gave me Pitocin to slow down my intervals, and that was when my dad and stepmom arrived. I did not want them to come in, and yet there they were in my room, my dad reading the newspaper to mask his discomfort that his teenage daughter was about to have a baby. I said, "Get out," in the faintest voice I could muster. This experience was taking a toll on me, and something in my system made me pretty weak. I was uncomfortable with my dad seeing my bushy vagina about to pop out a baby, something most 19-year-olds don't want their dad to experience. In another instance, a doctor, a white man, asked if some student fellows could come into my room to observe. I said no, faintly, and was ignored, and a group of young students poured in to fill my small room and talk about this black patient, taking notes as if I was not there and actively experiencing what they were discussing. I recall this one young student as he was incredibly tall and Chinese, which was something I was not used to seeing often in the Bay Area. I tugged on my mom and asked them to leave, and they did. I felt so furious and disrespected. I later found out that Kaiser Oakland is a teaching hospital. Shortly after, G arrived, high as a kite and spacey and all over the place. I was furious as I hated the smell, and I did not want to smell weed as I delivered our baby. He looked sick and like he was uncomfortable. He was upset I did not get an abortion as promised, but I learned I am pro-life, pro-choice. I'd need to keep that in mind for later. I asked my mother to make him leave. I knew he could not stomach what was next. It all came to a head and it was time to push. My mom told me to grr like a tiger, and I thought that was one of the most stupidest things I've ever heard, and I'm pretty certain I asked her to stop harshly with an eye roll. I started to push. It hurt like hell, and I continued to push, and then popped out a baby with some semblance of ease. I held her and was crying, and so happy and relieved. While in a new mom happy gaze, working on having her latch, my motherfucking neighbors poured into my room. I was covered by a medical cloth, blood, breasts exposed, and they wanted to see her and hold her. They did, and I died inside as I was trying to understand how was it there were a whole bunch of people in my room with my huge new mama breasts exposed, covered in blood, and they're here holding my baby, and I told the hospital absolutely no visitors on my damn hospital directive. The moment was ruined, and for someone who actively knows and knew that they wanted 0 to 1 children, there would not be another moment. It's gone, ruined. There was yet another devastating blow, and still they kept coming. The hospital wanted to give my new baby vaccinations. We're not an anti-vax family, but we are slow to vax. They wanted to put some eye drops in my kid's eyes, and I refused. They asked me why, and I said I read an article. The doctor started to drill me on this article, and I just had a damn baby. I could not recall why they were drilling me on this in my exhausted state. I held firm, and they had a different people come in and talk to me. A pediatrician of color, Indian maybe, another lady doctor. The more I held firm, the more frustrated the doctors became with me. It wasn't until later they shared those drops are only for moms with chlamydia delivering that need those administered, that it's uncomfortable for hospitals to ask moms if they have an STI, so instead they just blanket administer. Then it was on to Hep B and C, and I was pretty sure my baby was not actively having sex anytime soon, so I refused that too. More discussions, more questions on my decision making. I asked them over and over about tying my tubes, and they assured me that at my age I might want to conceive again. I pleaded and begged, and they refused me and referred me to get on birth control. What assholes. The knocks were endless. A social worker then came in. Obviously, someone was concerned and tipped her off as she was grilling me on if anyone does drugs or in the home or smokes. That even weed is a drug. What a bitch. I could not stand her. So fucking rude. I just had a baby. No one does drugs in the house. Yes, G seems to be a mess, but yet again, he was nowhere to be found again. A small detail my 17-year-old self might have missed when I fell in love with a hot guy who skated. Someone else came in, trying to separate me from my baby, encouraging me that I should rest. I thought, why in the hell would I want to be separated from my newborn baby? I literally had this human an hour ago and you're trying to take her away? I knew they gave sugar bottles to babies in the nursery so that they would rest, and I wanted to sleep and rest with my baby and take her in, so I refused them too. Then the lactation consultant came in last. She was the only person who treated me with real respect and dignity. That day, aside from my family and the medics in the ambulance, I finally could exhale, and I think I started to cry a bit. I am stoic, and I don't tend to cry in front of others. I stopped crying in my 20s altogether, but I did gently cry in this one instance where I felt human enough to fall apart. Kaiser tried to strip me away of every ounce of dignity, and the lactation consultant was the first one to treat me like a new mother, just wanting to do right for my baby. My age did not matter. My color did not matter. She just wanted to be supportive, and I will never forget it. I delivered a healthy baby girl, 7 pounds, 2 ounces, on an epidural and in under 30 minutes as my body knew what to do. Thankfully, my parents were present, but regardless, their degrees in education did not cloak me from being treated like a self-proclaimed hood rat raised on East 98th and Hagenberger. All the books and education could not have saved me from how they treated a young black mom becoming in the hospital. But at least I had nice eyebrows.
Thank you so much, Sarah. This is wonderful. Thank you for having the courage to share your story and to add some humor to that. I can't imagine how hard it is in office to even walk the eyebrows. Oh God.
Yeah.
I couldn't take a few steps, and I had plenty of people around me that said, "No, you should just keep doing what you're doing." Yeah, okay. Oh God.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
I think for me, it feels really good because I was reading Rest is Resistance by Trisha Hersey, and she was sharing how when she delivered, she was sharing to the doctors that she knew she could have a natural birth, and they didn't believe her, and they like overrode her wisdom and they overrode her knowledge and told her her baby was going to be too big and that it was impossible, and made her get a C-section, which was so sad because everything that she had predicted and felt, we can feel into things as mammals, was true. And I just think it was so incredibly shocking and disheartening because I thought, private school education, I am eloquent and I speak well. Like I thought I might have a different experience. So that was a really, traumatic moment. And there's a bit of catharsis in sharing because I was completely dismissed in so many ways. And people wonder why Black people don't go to hospital and why, we do a lot of things at home. And it's, imagine the context of you go somewhere each time and they're not listening to what you're saying
Yeah.
and you're being ignored. It's just a very strange and dissonant environment to be at hospital. Um, so it feels quite, yeah, quite good and
I'm
supportive.
glad.
Hmm.
Really glad. You know, my son was born with a scar at the center of his head. Uh, After 72 hours of labor, finally is out with all blood from his head. So we were very worried. Uh, but the point was that I repeatedly said no to inserting a kind of a straw inside me to monitor his heartbeat. I asked, please don't, because as you were saying, we are mammals and
Yeah.
somehow there's this instinct. I asked, is it dangerous not to do it? No, it's just we want to be safe. Okay, I don't want to do it. I repeatedly said so. Then we fell asleep. Fell asleep, it's a big word, but you know, I was exhausted. I let go. My husband fell asleep. They inserted this straw. They hurt him and they put the blame on me, saying that my ribs damaged him as he was coming out. Thank God we came to know later on that it was just a superficial scar. But imagine at the moment, you know, you're exhausted, everything happened, plus you see all this blood coming out of his head and being responsible for this blood. Um,
Wow. Wow.
it's a number of as I read your text, because I remember I read your text while I was on the plane. I read it immediately after we met at that conference. It's a number of small things
Mhm.
that adds up. In your case, these visitors that were pushing and pushing on your sense of intimacy, on your space,
Mhm.
and many other little moments. And I'm pretty sure that everyone is well intended,
Yeah.
that they want to do the best they can.
Yes.
So we come back to the same question: how do we educate each other to be the best human being for each other in moments of needs? I
Hmm.
don't know.
I've been thinking about this, especially in the past few days, what could change, especially with the turbulence that we're experiencing right now in America. It's like, what could change? Where do we start? And what do people need to know? And I think, having conversations with people who think differently than us, that's a starting point. But aside from that, I'm really feeling so much empty space. And in empty space there's possibility, and in empty space there's discomfort because I'm just not quite sure, especially growing up in a society that's steeped in pretty much caste systems. It's like, how do we begin to unravel hearing people's experiences? Like, a commonality here, most of my friends are from other countries, and a lot of people won't even try to understand what they're saying in English. And it's just very strange to me. I'm like, how could you not try to understand someone speaking to you? But the ability to be able to numb and tune out is just such a common thing. And now we have all of these layers of distraction, whether it be social media, whether it be streaming, whether it be, alcohol. We have all these layers of distraction that disconnect us from our humanity and from being curious about one another and
Being curious
learning.
about one another. That's
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. It's just tricky. It's a tricky layered thing.
Yeah, I have another question, but first
Mhm.
I want to hear if Christina or anyone online has something to add.
Mhm.
Well, thank you. It was an honor to hear your story. And I have a lot of thoughts about that because from also a perspective of a person who lives in Europe, some of the aspect of your stories seems to me also like institutional violence. The
Yes.
fact, for example, that you have to worry about how much will cost an ambulance or a doula is totally absurd from my perspective. And I also think that you suffered a lot of different injustice, from epistemic one, discursive and affective. Um, and also the topic of the blame that Susie was talking about. I think that we can see it in a lot of different history of bird, and I don't know, it's a shame for a whole human, I think. And so, yeah, I have a lot of thoughts. And thank you again.
Thank you, Christina. Means a lot. Yeah.
Thanks, Christina. I mean, you layer the because it seems so small. It seems many little things, but it's a layered form of injustice, as you said.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. That really, hits me so hard. And I I love learning about people's birth stories. And I'm like, dang, there's so many other better countries to have a baby. If I could have afforded that. And yeah, the aspect that we have to put in front of African American, Black American, like we're not just American, we are
mhm.
different and we have to be identified. So it's a very different experience, of course. And even, the social services aspect, and where I've seen and heard stories where there's a lot of efforts to take children away from Black mothers. It's a big thing here. Yeah. We're not fit. So,
It's scary.
yes, very incredibly. And that's how I move through, trying to raise a child, I think, through the layers of trauma. Yeah. I have some notes here I want to take a peek at. I think more than anything, like my minor is arts and health and narrative medicine. And what really is missing is that narrative competence, really, understanding the positionality and people's privilege. And equally, if we think about what could change the medical system overall, people need to be listening to people's stories and learning about their backgrounds and where they come from. And that's why I think, the power of story is so important. That's where we are able to touch and impact each other. We had a story in narrative medicine that somebody comes into hospital and they have this cough and this respiratory issue, and either the doctor goes straight into trying to figure out what it might be and on the drawing board not really sure, or they ask like, what are your interests? Well, I love to garden. Have you started using any new pesticides? Oh, I started this thing. Maybe it's the pesticide. If we are able to really inquire, and I don't think it takes that much time. I think it's just caring. If we inquire, then maybe we can learn something. And then equally, the vulnerability for you, Susie, I'm hearing as well, of being a mother at hospital and how they just do things. Like, and your husband's there. Like, absurd. We just, we're not on the same level. So they can just do things to us still. It's wild.
I wonder if you have, I have no idea why that nurse decided to do that while there was a change of nurses
Mm-hmm.
and boom, the second one, I just did
Mm-hmm.
it, have no idea. And I found it disgusting that they put the blame on me. It was just disgusting.
Yeah.
Because then the pediatrician, when she met my baby, said, yeah, of course, this is from the straw. It's evident, it's round, can't be your ribs. But anyway, uh, I wonder if you, so I don't even know the face of that woman. I wonder if you have talked to your neighbors at least, if you had the chance to confront them and say, did you ask if you wanted me to see you in that? If you had a chance to have a conversation with them to
Mm-hmm.
understand why didn't you wait? Why didn't you ask? I mean, probably the intentions were good. Probably they knew, oh my God, she's
Yeah.
having a baby. Let's check if everything is right and so on. But, you know, did you ever had that
Ah.
conversation?
It's a great question, and it was very uncomfortable for me.
Yeah,
And
imagine.
because mainly, like my neighbors who really came, they're the reason that I speak Spanish, and they're the kind of the igniters of my love of language. I always spent time with them, and they're from Mexico, and I would just play with the kids, and I picked up Spanish, and that turned into, love of French and Italian and German and just kind of continuing so on. So I felt like a little bit indebted to them. Like,
Mhm,
okay, that's the reciprocity. And equally, my neighbor, she is like a mother. And I think she's the reason that I'm okay and that I'm sane. And if it was just her, it'd be different than like her husband, her kids. It's
mhm.
just a lot. And there's this space. My friend described birth as a portal, right? You're in this very unique space energetically where people just are very overwhelming. It reminded me, I did shrooms for the first time, and it's like this portal of like everything feels energetically very overwhelming. So it just was too much for me. And I'm not sure that they asked, but that would be something to inquire on. Like, can I now, 17 years later, have almost 18, have the courage to ask and inquire? And would they remember?
Would they remember?
Yeah.
Exactly. Because for them, it might be just something, a completely good memory
Yeah.
that doesn't have any, yeah, any shadow anywhere.
Yeah. And the cultural aspect too, I think certain people and cultures like to celebrate childbirth, and I understand that. And I am very, very private. So there's things that I like to celebrate by myself. And even though I'm not understood, I'd like that boundary to be respected. Hmm.
Really. Italians have the same problem.
I
I
can
might say,
imagine.
yeah, it's, I mean, there are private people in Italy, but for an Italian mom, it's really hard to hold on to her boundaries because
Yeah.
the child is not completely hers. It belongs to the world, and
Yes.
in that belonging, then she loses herself because she almost doesn't count anymore.
I'm actually writing a book on that right now. And it's a very interesting thing, the aspect of belonging and then motherhood losing your identity in child. And the the importance to me, my reflection is we raise children for the world, not like children are ours and they're beholden to us and they need
Mhm.
to, support us as we descend into elderly life.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Yeah. You know, that reminds me that you might like this movie. John Tronto is going to present it, uh, I think, an hour after our meeting, Maintenance Work. And it's about an artist who becomes a mother and decide to dedicate her life to maintenance art, which is very cathartic because she finds a way to make care work into art. And until then, care was basically just, a price to pay to have a family.
Yeah.
So, Maintenance Artist by Toby Freilich.
Oh,
Um, I paste the link to our chat in case you two want to watch it.
thank you.
And to continue on what we were saying before, there's another another thing, another idea that is growing inside me in these days. I strongly believe in the value of kindness and in the power of kindness and how far it can go. Um, but uh, it doesn't go that far. I mean, I'm getting, of course, frustrated somewhere, and I wonder if the proposition of the new year or the new direction to take is to take more energy to have the unpleasant conversations, to be unpleasant. I
Mm.
mean, kindness is fantastic and it brings you far. Uh, but there are certain things that you cannot vehicle. I mean, you can be kind, of course, and vehicle very strict messages. Um, but they don't hear you. I don't know. I'm dropping this on the table in a very vulnerable
Yeah.
position. I don't have an answer, yes, but I start feeling sort of guilty to a number of no's of of conversation that should have been harsher than they were originally. And I wonder if I'm missing a window in that, if I should jump or not. I don't know if you felt anything similar, if you had any thought on that, especially, after your story.
Yeah, I most certainly do. And, I run into a lot of problems because I'm a very direct communicator and my
Okay.
energy can be very masculine.
Ah, okay.
So I find on occasion, especially with like interacting with clients and the work that I'm kind of navigating out of in finance, women tend to take offense that I don't want to dive into like the deep connecting. And I'm like, let's focus on business. Let's, what's the work at hand? I can be very masculine and really push forward and really communicate directly. And what it tends to stir in people is discomfort because they want to do that. They want to be honest about how they feel, but they have grown up in, a steeped religious environment, maybe of Catholicism or Christianity, where they feel some guilt or shame or judgment for wanting to do those things. And equally to me, kindness is wonderful, but I think a lot of women are nice. And it's like, well, nice, we're just being fake. So if you can, be real, and kindness can be saying the thing that people need to hear. But what I've
Yeah,
noticed, it
definitely.
brings a lot of conflict because people, it just kicks up their own stuff. They like project. And I've been reflecting on how many conflicts I've been in recently, just like saying the thing that
Mm,
nobody says. And then I'm dealing with the spillover of all of the emotions from that. And equally, I'm having, dialogues and conversations with a lot of my friends that grew up in Catholicism and want to kind of be more like me and say the thing. But it
mm,
comes with consequence and risk.
mhm.
And we have to be willing to be under that fire sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
most probably.
Probably so. Discomfort and all.
Discomfort, yeah, sometimes discomfort is a sign that you're growing up, you are
Yeah.
out of your comfort zone
Yes.
and exploring something new.
Exactly that. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're at a growth edge. It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to add anything, Christina, or anyone online. I saw at some point Joshua.
Yeah, let me see.
Yeah, you made me think with your input about kindness, because I read a lot of paper about like the perfect patient and the
Mm.
difficult
Ah.
patient, and the difficult patient is often like frame as a person who is rude and who talk a lot about things that they just think about medicine. And I think maybe that the fact that obstetric violence, racism, violence is so much common in obstetric field, maybe because we are like teach from younger age to be kind as a woman.
Mhm.
And so when we stop to do that in a moment when we are vulnerable, when we need like connection and support, we tend to be framed as a difficult patient and then to treat in a horrible way than if we maybe be like sorry, I lost my English. I was meaning is that probably if a woman tend to listen the healthcare personnel and do not talk and to try to be her voice heard, she will treat better. And so it's I don't know, just a
Beautiful.
thought.
Yeah, I love that. It sort of reminds me of the words which we use to label women when they're expressing and men when they're expressing, and how different those word choices are. And we have our own internal biases, and we are steeped in something when we grow up, right? And I just find it so interesting now. I originally was studying linguistic anthropology, so I'm really interested in language. But at my institution, it felt more like language policing. So I shifted over because I don't want to tell people that they're speaking incorrect. That's not a thing. And it's just so interesting the word choices people use, and it's like, can we really start to question even the way we're internally receiving things when people are speaking, and the little stories that we're creating about them. And it's, how many young Black mothers has Kaiser Oakland seen where it's like there's a little story about how we are. So when I came to the hospital, I wasn't Sarah from, this artist background. I was just a part of that little story that perpetuated on. So yeah, I think that's, really profound. And I have like a post thing on my paper. I'm like, should I read that now too?
Sure.
There's no more questions. Okay. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to read this. I think it's a ramble. All right. So after my lovely closing, I was reflecting. I was 19. I did not know how to drive. I had around $3,000 to my name. I worked 7 days a week, multiple jobs, and walked 5 miles round trip per day from my job at Bay Street in Emeryville. I rented a room from my child's cousin under their house in their basement as I was kicked out in the middle of the night while I was sleeping on the floor of G's mom's house by his dad, who was an alcoholic and lived downstairs. He called me a slut and said the baby wasn't his son's. I was too young to realize Mexicans could be racist too at the time. 6 months pregnant, we walked around 11 p.m. to go stay with his cousins. The room was unfinished. There were no stairs to access it, so I would jump on a bucket placed upside down to get outside. It got a bit more precarious and challenging the larger my belly grew. The bathroom was an outhouse, which was a cold to get to at night, hop up on the bucket, and outside to go pee in the dark with the night animals. At least I liked animals, although raccoons in packs were a bit unnerving. The shower was in the house. His cousins are a large, multi-generational Mexican family, so I had to wait until I heard no footsteps above to sneak in to shower, as I am an antisocial house hermit when in my space. I spent time with the man next door for work. He had Alzheimer's and dementia, and I would read him the paper and Robert Frost, and he would hate me sometimes and yell at me as he thought I was his ex-wife whom he despised. It paid well, and I loved his moments of brilliant clarity. In reflection of my time at Kaiser's Delivery Center, I recall wondering, how could they not realize who they were speaking with? How could they be disrespecting me? I felt I constantly had to defend my worth. Did they not know I went to private school? Did they know I was intelligent too? To me, the communication was poor and at times non-existent. I was not listened to or heard as a young Black woman, and there were assumptions about my ability of comprehension and insults on my education level, with the assumption both myself and my family were uneducated. As I watched the janitors mop up the blood off the walls from my projectile delivery, I thanked the janitors who were working diligently to do their job and move on to the next. Quiet and unseen, one must wonder how often they receive gratitude or congratulations. I have a couple more things, but I think I'll share it and then people can read that on their own. I think that's a good close.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah,
Thank
of
you.
course.
Yeah, this is also rich of reflections.
Constantly.
Yeah,
Constantly.
I think that the title is absolutely exact, the title you chose.
Thank you.
It would be helpful to bring more stories in.
Mhm.
Um, what will we do with these stories? Who knows? Is it a good intention that will become bad again? For example, I was thinking, because also the way in which academic writing is done, so the way in which we educate nurses
Mhm.
is completely sanitized, right? There are no stories.
Mhm.
The nurses, the doulas, come to know about people's life and what could happen through experience. And if you try to submit a paper that contains stories, they will not publish it to you because
Mhm.
it's not academic. So there's really a way of thinking of higher education that is completely sanitized from stories. Now I'm pushing it as much as I can in the handbook on bioethics that I'm publishing. There's a section that is just stories. My book on motherhood starts with a chapter that is just stories. I'm pushing it as much as I can. I wonder, would it be helpful to have in the hospital, but everywhere in the hospitals, on the walls, stories of people, to fill the walls with the stories, for example, and make these stories a piece of art. So while you are waiting, you don't feel alone. There's, you know, you can see who was there before you, and I don't know, but as everything, I, who knows if then a monster can come out of it. I strongly believe that we need these
Mhm.
stories to see what is unseen, because it makes our aesthetics, our capacity to perceive and to see deeper. Because,
Mm.
yeah, we have more details. There's the lived experience. Uh,
Yes, I mean, stories on the walls that just lit me up. It's so warming to think of what that might have felt like.
right.
Of different people from different places and different upbringings. That would be so
Yeah.
beautiful. And maybe too, I can bridge and people that are willing to share their stories can go into like medical classrooms. I mean, there's a very small group of people that are really getting into, narrative medicine, narrative competency, understanding that people have stories. But
Oh, yeah.
maybe yeah, we can grow this because why is it that so many people are dealing with this? And I mean, I'm one of few that's speaking out about this. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's like so many stories that are just going untold, and people carry that trauma just silently. Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that nurses would love doulas to know, to read about experiences.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. But academia does sanitize and
yeah.
yeah.
Then there's the higher education that says, stop, this is not scientific.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And then we open the big discussion what is science, but better not to go there.
Oh, yes. I'm in anthropology. I know it well.
Yeah.
There's a line.
Yeah.
So,
Sorry, I also think that even the healthcare professional can be like benefit from share their story of
brava.
Yes.
medicine violence, I think, because
Absolutely.
I work with a lot of midwife and focus group, and I noticed that they need to talk too.
Mhm.
So yeah, I totally agree with you, Susie.
Yeah, compassion fatigue, burnouts,
Yes.
the limits of material available in the working conditions. Let's put it this way.
Mm.
Who knows? Yeah, I hope we can host also midwives. So far, we didn't have many midwives presenting at No Bump No Care. There was maybe one or two. So let's
I
see.
can, oh, I know a few. Let me see if I can find their info.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be wonderful.
In the meantime, thank you so much for being part of this beautiful hour together. Thank you, Sarah, for giving us the space through your experience to point to certain topics, discuss them, denounce. Christina, thank you. It's always a pleasure to be in dialogue with you, and I hope the people watching from YouTube find this useful. So I wish you a wonderful weekend. There's a weekend in your eyes, and that's nice as well.
Yes, grazie a te, Susie.